Looks like our runners are on the way. So, as we said, I mean, for those that are new to the run, I guess we should probably explain what's going on with this first menu. So, you may have noticed both of these runners buying a hammer. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to use this hammer to glitch it into the knight's armor. And what they're going to be able to do is, because of the memory cursor, they can go from a character's weapon to its armor slot on the same frame, or they go in the same frame. They go into the menu, resulting in the game loading the ID of the weapon, in this case, the hammer. At the very same moment, it loads into an armor slot, and as such, it loads in the ID of the hammer, but on an armor slot, giving the knight's armor. They'll be doing they'll be doing this very same glitch a few times. They can either go from a weapon slot to an armor slot or vice versa, resulting in quite a bit of overpowered equipment they can get very early on in the game. With that, both of these runners have their defenses up, and they're able to start heading towards Chaos' Shrine, where they're going to fight Garland in order to save the princess.
And when they get into Chaos Shrine, they will be going and doing one more menu to get a very important item called the Judgment Staff. The Judgment Staff is an item that's kind of saved for kind of a bonus dungeon, kind of a super dungeon for later in the game. And we get an item in that dungeon that we can glitch right now called the Judgment Staff. The Judgment Staff, we're getting it for two reasons. One, it's actually stronger than any item we can get at this point in the game, so for a little while it'll be our primary attack weapon. But more importantly, at any time that rod can be used as an item to cast Flare, the most powerful black magic spell in the game, for free. Now, unlike staves in later Final Fantasy games, whenever you use a piece of equipment as an item in Final Fantasy 1, it does not get destroyed. So for any time we're fighting big groups of enemies that we cannot run from, we will be most likely using Flare through the Judgment Staff. And we'll be getting to see that in a minute, but right now we're just going to see it as a weapon. So Dubldrop approaches the first boss, Chaos.
Well, Chaos in his previous form at that. This is
Garland, yes.
Garland. And you'll see he's not a very difficult boss with this kind of weapon. You know, normally this is already not the kind of boss you should be struggling with. And with the weapon that Double has, it just becomes a one-turn fight easily. It generally takes 3 to 4 hits to kill Garland. Very rarely, I've seen it happen a few times. It can take a 5th hit and go into a second turn, but that is very, very rare. So it makes for a very, very quick fight. Now, you will have noticed early on that, you know, Double is taking a good early lead here, and that's in big part just on that menuing execution that we mentioned earlier. With Double being this much more experienced on the menuing, especially this early segment, it's going to make a huge difference. You'll see that there's some areas coming up where Double can completely lose that time again, but it definitely gives him a nice early lead on Boxmeister here. Boxmeister now also having killed Garland, having saved the princess, and now also going to head head back to the starting town and going to head for that bridge cutscene. Now, to explain a little bit of what they need to do here in the early part of the game, they've now killed Garland and they're going to get a bridge. And some guy in town would tell them, you know, if you want a ship, you can go to Provoca and you'd be able to get a ship there. Because they need some way of getting to the Crystals of Light. Now, in order to actually get to that ship, they need to cross the bridge, go fight some pirates, and they'll be able to get that. And you'd think, okay, then they can head for the first crystal. They need to collect 4 crystals of light here in order to travel back in time and fight Garland the second time. The problem is, in order to access that first crystal, they need to get into a different ocean than they're currently at. So they need to find some way of getting there, which can only really happen if they manage to to get a canal. They need the nitro powder in order to get that. To open up a canal into the other ocean so they can go there. However, the nitro powder is blocked by a door in the starting town, actually, and you can only open it with the Mystic Key, which would be fine because the Mystic Key is in the Elven town. The problem is the prince is asleep there. He's under a sleeping curse, and they need the Jewel Tonic from Matoya in order to open it up, or to wake him up. However, Matoya is missing an eye, so they need to get the Mystic Eye from Astos, who's stolen her eye, in order to get that. Astos, however, not willing to fight you until you get the crown. So they need to get the crown in order to get the Mystic Eye, in order to get the Jewel Tonic so they can get the Mystic Key, so they can get the Nitro Powder, blow up the canal, and go for the first crystal. That basically sums up like the first 15-20 minutes of the game. It's basically a whole lot of fetch questing that these guys need to do.
And that's something you'll notice at a few points in this run is at this section of the run, and then actually one pretty soon afterwards, you have some major backtracking fetch quests. And as something kind of shows the age of the original Final Fantasy, is later games in the series, you are able to hide some of that backtracking fetch quest stuff by having more cutscenes, more plot development, character development. In this game, your characters pretty much are just, 4 archetypes that don't have any dialogue, any character development, or anything. So the mechanics that are present in lots of the later games in the series are just a little more obvious in this older game.
So Dubldrop, now having killed some of the pirates, this is the first occasion where you got to see the power of the Judgment Staff. Him just using that staff to instantly kill all 9 of the enemies and basically finish off the fight in one go. The runners can opt to use the Judgment Staff either with 2 or 3 of the characters. Using it only with the mages makes the menuing later on a little bit easier, but it does raise the chances of the pirates actually getting some attacks off, so it can be slower depending on your luck. You can also opt to also use it with the Thief, which makes the menuing a little harder, but gives you a bigger chance of having a good fight there. Dubldrop seemingly getting pretty unlucky, getting 2 shark encounters very early on already. He's going to try to run from these, but sharks are really painful in that they can be kind of hard to run from, especially early on. Basically, the chances of you running is determined by your intelligence, your evasion, and your on this third one. I kind of forgot the third one. There's a third stat as well. Anyhow, because they're still low level, because they don't really have any additional equipment to help them, that stat isn't very high, so their running chances are going to be pretty low. Dubldrop, or Boxmeister, getting a similar encounter, also trying to run away from it. Looks like he is not getting very lucky either, and is now going to opt to go for the kill on them.
Yeah, unfortunately, these early sea encounters, while encounters in the sea are not as common, they can be very bad early on, and a lot of your early game times are pretty much determined by how well these sea encounters go and this upcoming walk through the forest here.
Yeah, Dubldrop immediately getting the 7-wolf ambush, one of the worst possible encounters to get there. Boxmeister also getting a second encounter. See, another shark gonna try to run away from it. Let's see if he can actually... He gets the run this time, so at least he got that going for him. But this definitely goes to show how quickly, this can change due to some unfortunate encounters here.
And both runners are just having a heck of a time with encounters right now, which honestly, that's Final Fantasy 1, but at the same time, it's keeping them fairly close together. We'd much rather see this than a situation where one person's getting no encounters at all and one person's getting them all.
Yeah, and a big thing here is like a lot of what these runners need to decide on is how do they want to play certain encounters. Like the sharks that they saw, they both got it, and you can either opt to kill them, which is a lot safer, but would waste a little bit of time, or you could try to just run away from it and hope for the best. And it really determines on, how do the runners want to play their chances, basically. It's a lot of decision making, especially in this early part of the game, in a race like this, where, a lot is just going to be determined by what encounters do they get and how are they going to play with those encounters.
But as a gauge of where we would expect to be at this point in the run, we usually like to have defeated the next set of mini-bosses by the 10-minute mark, preferably a little before that. And it looks like neither of our runners is even going to be in the cave where you fight them by that point. So they're both just having a heck of a time And it's not really their execution. I mean, there's been some slight imperfect execution here and there. There's some choices made, but for the most part, it's just they're both having pretty rotten encounter luck. But it's keeping the race close. Close races are fun races.
Yeah, it looks like Boxmeister and Double pretty much entering the cave at roughly the same time. If it wasn't for that encounter that Box got just before entering the cave, he probably would have pulled ahead here. You can definitely see that little bit of advantage that Double has in his movement, in that it's a little bit smoother than Box's. But Dubldrop definitely not getting any luck here compared to Box, who, despite not having the greatest of encounter lucks at all, still getting away with most of the stuff here.
And those little movement imperfections, they add up over time, because not only is that time spent walking where you don't need to, but every step you take is a chance of another encounter. So if you take an extra, 20 steps over the course of the run, well, that might be 3 or 4 extra encounters you get in the run. So one of those might be an ambush, and suddenly you've lost a minute.
Yeah, that is definitely why, even though it seems like a very luck-based game, the execution still ends up playing a very big role in it, especially in these kind of races. It might not seem like much, but those little differences can definitely add up. Doesn't necessarily have to, and it definitely doesn't mean that, it's all over at the start, but they can add up and can make a huge difference in a run. That's generally also why it's usually like the same top runners that tend to perform really well in just general runs will also do really well in these kind of races at the same time. So it looks like both of them have left Marsh Cave and are now going to head for Astos, the next boss of the game. So far, there's nothing really threatening on the way. Boxmeister had a bit of an unfortunate encounter with some ghasts earlier, but nothing too serious. And the Pisco Demons can be a little dangerous, but only if you really did not heal at any point. You'll have noticed that both of the runners healed their characters before they went into that fight, just so that they would be safe for the Pisco Demons themselves. Other than that, with the defenses that these guys carry and the kind of weapons that they have, they really don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, the only real threat with those Pisco Demons is they can get critical hits, and critical hits will ignore the overpowered armor we've equipped right now. Last year during this tournament, Ud Sigma, who was, I'm not sure if at the time, but around that time, took the world record. He just had a very unlucky run, and he had got ambushed, and they got 4 critical hits and killed all of his characters. That's so exceedingly rare. It's not something we typically save for. We just make sure we have hit points and some characters before we go into that battle.
Yeah, and Sigma in that one particular race, I think he forgot to heal, so that just got his health very, very low to begin with, making it a very dangerous fight. So this is Astos, and Astos, you'll notice, he can do one of 2 things on the first turn, and they both got the good RNG here. He can either use a physical attack, which just deals a little bit of damage, no big deal, or he can cast a spell called Death. Now, if Death happens to hit on one of the mages, and it actually hits, it can lose a lot of time, because it can make this fight a 2-turn fight if you get bad rolls. It's not as common if it hits the warrior or the thief. You generally still get a 1-turn fight at that point, but it's very, very painful to get that Death off. Not to mention that if they would have gotten that off, they would have had to menu after the fight in order to recover the respective character they lost.
And to point out how much more important it is to have the mages alive there just for that fight, not even for the leveling later, as Double pointed out in the chat over there, his warrior got a very, very low damage roll, only 21 hit points of damage he did against Astos, but he was still able to single cycle it because of the damage the mages were doing. But if you do get very lucky, if you get 2 good strong hits from your warrior and your thief, you might get away with only having to do 1 judgment staff.
Yeah, and in that regard, it also really matters which mage is still alive. The black mage will always do about 200 damage. The white mage generally does either about 120 or about 220. So it can be a huge difference which of the mages is alive, because it is always a bit of a coin toss if it's the white mage.
And speaking of coin tosses, something we're going to be looking at throughout the run, whenever you level up in this game, the stat increase on your characters are somewhat random. And some of them that matter a lot to us are going to be our speed stat, which makes it easier to run. And also, very important for the very end of the game is our hit point stat, specifically on our Black Mage and our Thief. Throughout the game, and especially after we finish the grind, we're going to be taking a close look at their hit point pools. We might have to use a strategy later on with an item called Giant's Tonic to increase their hit point pools for the final battle. And it looks like Double is getting close to a Paralock here. He's got a Judgment Staff, and unfortunately, he gets it.
So I don't think we've seen this much in these races, but it is possible for all of the characters to get paralyzed at the same time.
Oh.
It is just brutally painful when that happens. This is a very unfortunate situation. Basically, the paralysis that these ghasts can get you, it tends to stack. You can actually get paralyzed more than once, meaning that you can infinitely get locked into a paralysis. Double loses a lot of time to a paralock like that. That is going to cost him a lot right here, and going to give Box a good opportunity to take a good lead here. This is definitely not the worst possible place to get paralocked. You generally are able to get out of them, but they can still be very painful. Boxmeister getting a pretty unfortunate encounter himself as well, so Double is still able to keep up with Boxmeister, but this is looking very painful for both of these runners right now.
The theme of today's races so far seems to be rough races.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the 16-minute mark, 16 to 17 minutes is usually what you want to get for getting the Mystic Key. These guys haven't even gotten the Jewel Tonic yet. So both of these having very, very rough races at this point. Getting a very, very tough early game. Boxmeister being the first to enter Matoya's cave, I suppose, in order to get the Jeweled Tonic. Dubldrop getting one more wolf encounter beforehand. He may actually have to get into the menu soon to start healing that Black Mage. The Black Mage is getting very low for Dubldrop. But Box definitely having a decent lead here. Not enough that we can call this a race, not even close, but definitely taking the lead, in part because of that paralock that Double just got.
But at this point, any lead that's under a minute or two is easily caught up later. If anyone watched the previous run, we went back and forth on who was 2 minutes ahead, and toward the end of the game, we were neck and neck. You can have a whole lot of variation, especially with places like the Cavern of Earth, Ice Cavern, and Chaos Shrine. But both runners are just having kind of a hard time right now, and it can be very frustrating. At this point, you need to watch out for just making careless mistakes. When things start getting frustrating, it's easy just to kind of lose focus and start making silly little mistakes that cost you a turn here, an extra battle there, or you forget to pick up an item. So you need to pay close attention to what you're doing, even when you're having a frustrating race.
Yeah, in that regard, because both of these runners are having such a bad early game, it's their process in their minds is going to be even more important, because they have to try and keep their heads cool here. Despite knowing that this is a very, very tough start, and presumably they probably don't actually know from each other that they're having a really tough start. Boxmeister may know that Double is behind, or that Double is having a tough beginning, but Boxmeister or Dubldrop might not have realized as much, that this is actually still very close. And in that regard, it's all the more important to keep your head cool and keep playing to your very best here. So Boxmeister now entering the Thieves Armlets menu. So they're going to do another equipment glitch menu here. This time in order to get the Thieves Armlets, which is going to increase their agility, making it a lot easier to run away from encounters. This is probably actually a menu where Dubldrop might be able to catch up, because the Doubles menu here is a lot smoother than Boxmeister's.
In fact, I think that might be what happens right here.
Yeah, Box is having a lot of trouble going to the left with his menu. So this is definitely going to lose Box a lot of time. He actually got it a few times, but immediately canceled out because he presumed that he wasn't going to get it. That just makes him lose even more time to it.
And it looks like they will use that superior menuing to catch up.
This is where you get to see how important that menu execution can be in a run like this. Boxmeister losing his entire lead solely on that one menu. And it looks like Box is actually making a bit of a mistake here in that he tries to use the leather cap to go back for the Judgment Staff, which he doesn't actually need. If you make a mistake in that menu, it's pretty common for newer runners to just try and get that Judgment Staff back, even though you're about to upgrade to the Barbarian Sword, so you don't really need it anymore. That's definitely one of those rookie mistakes that you tend to see a lot with newer runners in the game.
Yeah, at this point in the game, we definitely will not be needing that Judgment Staff because there are no unrunnable encounters, no required battles between here and when we're replacing our weapon.
Yeah, I guess Boxmeister probably just not realizing that due to his inexperience with the run, that just losing him just that little bit more time even. And with that, Double taking a steady lead, getting the Nitro Powder as Box is now leaving towards Cornelia. So Boxmeister also picking up the Nitro Powder, and with that they can head for the Dwarven Cave, Mount Duragar, where they're going to actually use that Nitro Powder in order to blow up a canal so that they can get to the cave with the first of the crystals. Now, when it comes to the 4 crystals they need to collect, they can pretty much do them in whatever order they want, except for that the first crystal has to be the Crystal of Earth. Once they get the Crystal of Earth, they can get the canoe and they can pretty much travel wherever they want, slowly but steadily increasing their options as they unlock the airship. But so for this first part, they're gonna just get to that Crystal of Earth, and from there they're actually gonna get the choice as to which crystal they want to do next. Now, back in an old route, it used to be common to do the fire crystal as the last crystal, whereas in the route that both of these runners will be going for, we'll be doing the fire crystal as the second crystal. So the order of the crystals changed a little bit over time. It's still most sensible to do the water crystal before the air crystal, as there's an item in the water dungeon that they need in order to open up the dungeon with the air crystal. So there is still some pointing from the game as to what the logical order of crystals would be, but it's definitely anyone's game at that point. You can take different orders if you'd want to.
It's been fun watching the route evolve over time. It's been the same for about a year now, but for the longest time, we kind of changed our crystal order, and we went away from kind of the developer intended order of the fiends, and then kind of back to it over time. The only reason we actually fight Lich first is because in order to get the canoe, you have to have defeated the Lich first. Otherwise, we would be doing him later in the run, simply because the airship makes a fetch quest within the Lich quest would be much faster with an airship. But yeah, unfortunately, we are required to walk it.
Yeah, if you would have been able to get the airship before Lich, it would have hands down saved you minutes to do that, but unfortunately that just isn't an option, so they will have to do that fetch quest before anything else. So both of these runners now out of Mount Duragar and on their way to Melmond, where they're going to get the next equipment upgrade. So up to this point, they've, like we've already mentioned before, their weapon is about to get a massive upgrade. They're still using the same staffs they got at the start of the game, and even though the staff itself is really, really useful, it's not quite that powerful. It's pretty much starting to lose that initial attack power that it had. And so they're going to get the Steel Glove here, which they're going to be able to use in order to glitch themselves the Barbarian Sword, which is by far the most powerful sword in the game. It has a base power of 125. For comparison, the next best sword, the Masamune, I think it's the Masamune, has I believe 49 base power. They can get the Ragnarok, which is another really good weapon, which at 990 or more current health would be 99 base power, but even then it would not be able to keep up with the power of the Barbarian Sword. Now, on top of that, the Barbarian Sword grants them a strength boost of 15, so yet another advantage for them to have that Barbarian Sword. Looks like Boxmeister now also finishing up the menu and heading up to Cavern of Earth. They're both trying to do a bit of a movement optimization with the ship. I noticed that Box wasn't able to get it. I don't know if Double got it just now. I wasn't looking at it. Basically, they're getting on the ship, going one tile down, and then immediately off again. It saves a few frames to do that. It's very, very minor time save, but you know, it can be a nice little time save right there. Dubldrop getting very, very close to a paralock again, giving Boxmeister an opportunity to make up for that time he lost on the menuing and go into the Cavern of Earth first.
Double does get the paralock. So, but as we're talking about movement optimization earlier, you see Boxmeister was having some slight issues at the beginning of the cavern and got himself an extra encounter while having to work around that. So it's just those little tiny two-step mistakes here and there really, really do add up.
Yeah, and Boxmeister's movement in that regard is definitely not up to standard that Dubldrop's is. So Boxmeister has to rely on his luck in order to take a win in this, where Dubldrop can just rely on his execution to give him the win here. So even though Dubldrop has been getting really, really bad luck over the course of the run, he's still able to catch up pretty much entirely to Boxmeister just because of that better execution that Double has. So they're now hitting Cavern of Earth B3. Looks like neither of the runners going for a safety save on the cockatrices here. There is a small chance that you can find a cockatrice encounter starting B3 of Cavern of Earth, and what they can do is that upon hit, they have a chance to petrify a party member. And petrifying a party member can be really bad because once petrified, it basically just counts as dead. Now, if all 4 of the party members get petrified, that just means that it's instantly done. Like, if all 4 of them get petrified, it's just a game over. And if you haven't saved, you'll be sent back to the start of the game. It's a very, very rare death, but it can happen on occasion, so it's really something that these runners will want to watch out for and take the appropriate safeties. Looks like Double and Box both get really solid B3s. Boxmeister getting the 1 in 64 Ochre Jelly. Now, I want to mention this because this is by far my favorite encounter. That encounter Box just got is a 1 in 64 Ochre Jelly. You can only find it in this dungeon. It's a 1 in 64 encounter on floors 3 and 4 and a 3 in 64 on floor 5. Very rare encounter, very hype encounter. It's really easy to run from, so, you know, it's not that bad, but it's just a really fun encounter to see.
So something we just saw on Boxmeister's screen that he avoided a very easy to make mistake for early runners is he had to use the Judgment Staff again. Previously, when we used Judgment Staffs, they were on our weapon slot, so we had the item menu pre-queued to our equipped weapon slot to use the Judgment Staff. Now that we have the Barbarian Sword, the Judgment Staff is now in our item menu, And a lot of runners earlier on, and even some of us who are more experienced, just we have a brain fart, and after getting the Barbarian Sword, the first time we try to use the Judgment Staff, we just hold down the attack button on the menu screen, thinking we already have it queued up in our item menu. And unfortunately, we try to use the Barbarian Sword as an item, and it does nothing and ends up costing us a turn. So Box was able to catch that. So that's something you got to watch out for.
It definitely shows that even though Box, he's not nearly as experienced as a runner like Dubldrop, and his movement is definitely not on the same standard as Dubldrop, he is definitely got a bit of experience with the run, and he knows when to do what menu. Another very common mistake for early runners is just to hold both of the run buttons instantly and try to run from the Pisco Demons on turn 1 whenever they happen to encounter it. Just another one of those mistakes that you tend to see a lot with new runners, but Boxmeister managing to avoid that and getting the proper menuing done there. So it definitely shows that despite of how new he is, he definitely has enough experience to be able to handle the RNG appropriately. So at this point, you're going to notice that Box is finally going to heal up the Warrior. One thing that these runners are going to look for is that they're going to try to keep the health of the Warrior and the Thief somewhere between about 20 and 70. Once you get below that, it can get kind of dangerous. If you get above that, it can be kind of annoying because there's a grind later on where you have to kill both of those off. And if they're above 70, there's a chance they will live. Well, generally, it does somewhere between 75 and 80 damage. So they want to be above that in order to make sure that that won't be below that in order to make sure that that won't be an issue.
A moment ago, Box got an unfortunate ambush from the Shadows. Shadows, as an enemy group, they have a 7 and 8 chance of giving you a preemptive attack, which you can just run from instantly. But that 1 in 8 chance is for an ambush. Generally, we don't mind running into them because we can almost always run from them first turn, but it can be very frustrating when they get that 1 in 8 ambush on you, especially since they do tend to have higher count encounters with 6 or 7 enemies, so you have to wait for all of those attack animations before you can even attempt to run. And if you get really unlucky with your initiative rolls, you may have a situation where they get 10, 12 attacks in before you actually get to run.
So Boxmeister again getting unfortunate, getting an 8 Wargwolf ambush. This is definitely where that RNG is catching up to Boxmeister. Double is more and more able to take that lead again. Definitely looks like that rough start that Boxmeister had is just going to get worse from this point on. Whereas Double is kind of able to pull back from the unlucky start that he had. Now, when it comes to the Lich, which is the next boss of the game, and the first really big boss that they need to fight, you generally want to kill him around like the 33, 34, maybe 35 minute mark for races like this. So the fact that both of these are barely entering the Cavern of Earth for the second time, and Boxmeister just getting the Earth Rod right now at already the 33 mark just goes to show that both of these runners have had a very, very tough start.
Now, did we explain really why we are using the party that we are?
I don't think we have. So I guess we should explain each of these members, because this seems like a very odd party to use as the best possible party. And I guess I should start with a Thief, because that's most commonly the one that people are confused about. But the Thief is actually the most powerful class in the game if you're not limited to any equipment. So ideally, we want to get as many Thieves as possible. For the all bosses and full bestiary run, we actually take 2 of them. For the any percent run, we unfortunately need all of the other party members, so we can only take 1. The warrior really only has 1 goal, and that's to get that barbarian sword that we have. Considering how powerful it is, you can't get it as early if you don't have a warrior in your party. The Black Mage has one purpose, and that is to use the teleport spell. We also use him to use haste later on, which is an added bonus that we get. And then last we have the White Mage, which we just need in order to heal enough to actually survive the final battle. So each of these party members have a very specific goal, except for the Thief, because for the Thief it's just a matter of raw damage. The Dubldrop getting very unlucky, gets some Wraiths. Now Wraiths are one of the hardest to run encounters in the Cavern of Earth. Tries to run from it, he gets away with it, but it does seem to take him quite some time in order to do so. Boxmeister able to catch up a little bit again, almost at B4 as well. So it looks like, despite of how bad the starts were, they're still very, very close together. Dubldrop getting some cockatrices. Now this is that scary encounter that we mentioned. They can petrify a party member, which they actually did on his warrior. Boxmeister getting another 1 in 64 Ochre Jelly. Unfortunately for him, an ambush, but that is 2 times that he's gotten the rarest encounter in this cave in a single run. That's very, very rare to see that. So, I mean, considering how bad his run is, I don't want to say anything too much about it, but usually when I get those, I tend to say that the run is blessed, so see if that's going to make a difference for Boxmeister today. Dubldrop getting to the first major boss of the game, the Lich.
Now we do generally try to save before Lich. Lich has a chance of casting Blizzara, which our characters have pretty good physical defense. They have no magical defense. If he casts Blizzara, it's pretty much a guaranteed one-shot kill on your entire party. But Dubldrop takes him out no problem at all. You can usually kill him in 2 to 3 hits with a Barbarian Sword.
Yeah, so each of the 4 crystals is protected by an elemental archfiend, and these are kind of like the big bosses of the game. This was the first major boss, and you can just see how powerful that Barbarian Sword is, that despite their really low level, they can just take it down no problem. Looks like Boxmeister healing up his mage is taking the safety save as well, and going for the fight with the Lich as well now. Looks like it's about I want to say about a minute difference, roughly. So still very close together. Pretty much anyone's game at this point. So Boxmeister actually getting Blizzarad. This is rough. Boxmeister, I think that's one of the first Blizzaras that we've seen this tournament.
Yes.
Gets the Blizzara on Lich, and as you can tell, like that instantly just wipes the entire party. It's pretty rare to happen. It's I want to say anywhere it's around like maybe a 5% chance to die there, but Boxmeister just dying on the Lich here. That is brutal. He gets the kill off, but that just loses him like a good 45 seconds right there.
I think almost all of us, when we first started running the game, didn't really realize the risk that was. And a lot of us, we first start running the game casually, our first couple of races, we don't bother saving there until the first time it happens to you. Then you start saving there every time. Because one nice thing about this, since it was designed for a mobile platform, is you can save anywhere in the game.
Yeah, and one quick note I want to make about the Lich, in a very old route of this game, it actually wasn't a very scary fight at all. The thing is, there is an item that you can get, the Dragon Meal, which would pretty much give you a 50% resistance against all magic, or all elemental magic, which would mean that you basically always survive the fight. Problem is, even like getting the equipment loses about like 20 seconds, and it's a 5% chance to lose about 45. So you just want to bet on the 95% chance to get out of the fight without problem, rather than losing the 20 seconds in order to get the added equipment for it. Now this definitely gives Boxmeister, or puts Boxmeister quite a bit behind. Dubldrop now getting his next bit of menuing done, the Blackguard menu, which is the next upgrade of the Thief's Armlet, so to speak. gets him some extra agility, makes running even faster, and he's going to be the first one to get the canoe. Now, once they get the canoe, they've got about 3 options as to what they can do. They can either go to the Citadel of Trials, which we actually do in a glitchless run of this game. You can go for the Levy Stone in order to get the airship, which these runners are going to do. Or you could do what the game is actually intending you to do and go for the second crystal, the Fire Crystal. The reason we don't want to go for the Fire Crystal right now is because it's quite a bit out of the way. It involves a lot of additional overworld movement, and the airship, you can just park it right in front of it, and the airship doesn't have any encounters, so definitely a lot better to use the airship in order to get there rather than using the canoe.
And the ice cave coming up is one of the scariest sections of the run. I'd say it's probably the place with the highest likelihood of death, other than possibly the chaos fight itself. Because there are so many encounters here that can decide to end you. We have the cockatrice we had earlier. We have white dragons. We have pisco demons. We have dark wizards. There's a lot of enemy types that can one-shot you, and we also have several different unrunnable encounters in the pisco demons and in the winter wolf ice gigas fights. So it's a dungeon that can really it can go really, really well, and it can go really, really poorly.
Yeah, not to mention, on top of all of that, there's actually also a lot of encounters that can paralyze you. There is wights, ghasts, specters, wraiths. There is the mind flyers, which is actually a very deadly encounter as well. They can both paralyze every party member in the same turn, as well as kill a party member on hit with a direct attack. There is just a lot that can go wrong in the Cavern of Ice, and it's definitely one of these dungeons that can make or break a run right here. I think at the end of the group stage, not too long, like a week and a half ago, we had to do one additional match because 2 runners were completely tied on both their average time as well as their scores. And at that point, Lenofis, who lost that particular match, he just got butchered by the Cavern of Ice, and it just lost him minutes. And this is definitely that place that if you get unlucky, you can make up, if you can just lose minutes on another runner just on the RNG here. Once they get out of this dungeon, it's generally pretty smooth sailing. So, you know, after this, it gets a lot easier. But first, these guys will have to manage to get through the Cavern of Ice.
And Double is already having a kind of rough time here in the Cavern of Ice. You may notice that he's leaving his warrior dead. That's because he needs him dead later. And if he can, it's just better odds of being able to get to the grind fight a little quicker if his warrior goes in dead. So he's not going to bother reviving him right now.
Yeah, there's kind of a tough decision that Double has to make when the warrior dies at that point. You can either choose to leave him dead, which makes running away from encounters a little bit harder, which is actually a bit of an extra risk, but will save some time on the grind fight. Or you can opt to revive him and take that extra bit of safety of having an extra party member there. It's really it's one of the tougher decisions that you have to make during a run like this. Double opting to try and go for that little bit of time save because he knows that he's going to need that, considering how bad his run has been so far.
And the further you go into the ice cavern, the less difficult the decision becomes. So the last race earlier, about the area Dubldrop is in right now, I got attacked by some dark wizards that killed everyone by white mage. At that point, I just revived my black mage simply because we were so close to the grind fight, it wasn't that much of a risk. But right now, Doubles had a scary situation where he almost got his party petrified because he was one party member down. So just kind of shows some of that risk there.
He is probably only going to revive the Black Mage for pretty much the same reason. It looks like he's also going for the Thief. Bit of an interesting choice there, actually, from Dubldrop, considering how close he was to the grind fight. probably just didn't want to take the risk of another fight like that, but interesting.
In chat, it looks like it was a mistake. He didn't mean to do it.
Looks like he also decided to not heal his Black Mage, meaning that his Black Mage is going to be, or would possibly die here to a Thundara. It looks like he's going to take the kill, knowing this, just taking the safer route and taking that extra fight to make sure that the Black Mage will survive another fight. Looks like his Black Mage only got a +1 on the HP, though. That can be a bit scary for Double.
Boxmeister just failed to run from a Mind Flayer. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, luckily for Boxmeister, it's only one Mind Flyer, so it tends to not be that big a problem. Like, the more of these Mind Flyers you get, the more dangerous it becomes, but it's still very painful if you can't get a run from these guys.
So Double is choosing not to heal his mages right here during the grind. It's a little bit risky strat. Every now and then you just get unlucky and that Evil Eye gets the first turn off. And if that were to happen right now, you cast Thundara on the first turn, it could wipe out his party.
Looks like Boxmeister is going for a very risky run there, and he gets away with it, having 3 of his party members paralyzed and still trying to run. He gets away with it, so that's very lucky for Boxmeister there. Very big risk he took there, but he gets away with it and gets that extra bit of time save. He probably realizes that he needs to get this time save if he wants to get a shot at beating Dubldrop. So just taking the risks that he can get, and he gets put in a very tough position in that his Black Mage gets gazed. He actually survives with a Black Mage on 4 health. Now, that is probably one of the lowest rolls I've ever seen from a Thundara on the Black Mage right there. So very, very lucky for Boxmeister to have gotten away with that. Definitely puts him in a weird position, but he gets away with all of the risks that he's taken currently. Dubldrop pretty much finishing up his grind, gonna heal off his characters completely. I'm gonna move out of the Cavern of Earth. Looks like he didn't completely heal his warrior, interestingly enough. You don't really need to pay attention to their health anymore at this point, so it's kind of interesting that Double is opting to keep the warrior only at 51 health here. Probably trying to save up the time from potioning and just skipping that until he gets Hilara later on. Dubldrop getting the Ice Giga's Winter Wolf, which is another unrunnable in this place. He is definitely not getting the luck today. But it looks like he's getting close to the exit of Cavern of Ice, and he is still alive. So it looks like the worst hasn't happened.
The Cavern of Ice is kind of a unique place. When you run across Pisco Demons, usually they're a terrible encounter to get because they're unrunnable. But at this point, the Cavern of Ice, at least, is not something that can kill you or paralyze you. You know, it's something you can deal with in one turn no matter what.
Looks like Boxmeister now also finishing up the grind. Basically, the walk out of Cavern of Ice behind Dubldrop is definitely close enough that it can still go anywhere. He's going to take that safety save and going to move out of the Cavern of Ice and towards the airship. So the main reason they wanted to go to the Cavern of Ice first is in order to get the Levy Stone, which is that weird cube-like stone that they picked up. Now, the reason they need that stone is because that stone is what triggers them getting the airship as soon as they enter the Ryokan Desert. Boxmeister actually getting very unlucky here. I want to point out those Dark Wizards. Getting a Faraga off there is able to tank it because of how much health he has at this point in the run. But that is a very scary encounter to get right here, especially if you can't run from them. But yeah, Dubldrop entering the Ryokan Desert, and he's going to trigger a cutscene here that's going to give him the airship.
So we're running across into a much safer section of the game right here once we get out of the Cavern of Ice. There is one encounter in the next area where you can theoretically be killed by Mind Flayers, but it is extremely rare, and there's also the Sandworm up here. But generally speaking, this is a much safer section of the game for a little while. It's really not until the Chaos Shrine that we're really going to be worrying about death again.
Yeah, so the Sandworm is an encounter that has a move called Earthquake, which is an instant kill move that can target, or that targets the entire party at once. I've only, however, seen it kill run twice ever. Once during a testing run that Dubldrop was doing, and once actually happening during the semi-finals of last year's tournament. So it can happen, but it's a very, very rare death. The Mind Flyers in here, like, even though they are kind of a dangerous encounter, because you have 4 party members, because you have the health to do a lot, you have pretty good stats here, they tend to not really be a problem. Not to mention that the encounter rate in the dungeon is fairly low to begin with, so you don't tend to encounter a lot of them anyway. So Dubldrop making his way through the Citadel of Trials. Now, when it comes to these teleporters, this is kind of like a teleporter maze, but it's pretty easy for the runners to remember what teleporter to pick. It's always the lower teleporter. Whichever room they get to, if they pick the lowest teleporter, they'll always progress through the dungeon the way they want to. Boxmeister about to get himself the airship as well. That's going to allow him to head for the Citadel of Trials in just a little bit as well.
And as we can see, we're talking about the Ice Cavern kind of being one of those equalizers that's kind of spread the game out and go really well, really poorly. And it just went a little worse for Boxmeister than it did for Dubldrop there. But we're going to have plenty of opportunities for Boxmeister to catch up coming up soon.
Yeah, there is still several dungeons. The Citadel of Trials can do a lot, even though it's a pretty safe dungeon in general. There's the Sunken Shrine, which can definitely still change the outcome of a run. There's Mirage Tower, Flying Fortress, Waterfall Cave, just to name a few places that can make a huge difference. Looks like Box actually gets a little bit confused on his airship movement there. It's going to lose him a few seconds on double again. Curious to see where Box is trying to... He's trying to figure out where on the world map he is. Got a bit of a weird movement out of the way, but he gets to his destination eventually, and now heading for the Citadel of Trials. Dubldrop getting into a spike tile, the Nightmares. This tile will always give him Nightmares, and because of the stats that they currently have, it's kind of hard to run away from them. So generally, unless it's a preemptive, you just want to try and just kill them. You can opt to try and run, but it's pretty rare to actually succeed at that.
Yeah, I don't know what the run odds are against the Nightmares, but it is difficult enough that for a lot of people actually think it is actually an unrunnable encounter. It's not unrunnable, it's just almost impossible to run from. So we treat it as an unrunnable.
So Dubldrop getting the Rat Still. Now the Rat Still is actually not the most important item that they want to get in this place. It's actually the Healing Staff that's the big game changer for this dungeon. The Healing Staff they can transform into the Lordly Robes, which grants them plus 20 on Intelligence whenever it's used. Now Intelligence has 2 big bonuses. First of all, it means that they can heal for a lot more, and when I say a lot more, I mean that it's because of that additional intelligence of being able to glitch several of those Lordly Robes, they can skip leveling for Hilaga which basically means that level 19 is going to be enough rather than needing level 33 in order to have appropriate healing. Now, on top of that, having the Lordly Ropes and having that extra intelligence also helps with running. There is an item they're going to pick up soon enough as well that gives a plus 15 on evasion, which is basically as good, but it still helps with the running chances from the White Mage on top of everything else. So Dubldrop going to enter the Dragon Caves and going to talk to Bahamut to get his class change. Now, in a very old route of this game, we actually used to not do class change, but that involved because of the class change, they get two major advantages. One being that the Lordly Robes that I just mentioned, which just saves a lot of grinding. It brought back the grinding from about 8 minutes to about 2 minutes, so it's a very significant time save. On top of that, because of getting the class change itself, they can get a spell called Teleport, which is going to help them save some time in 2 dungeons that are coming up pretty soon. Looks like Box is going to try to run away from these nightmares. Knows that he's behind, probably going to try to take that bit of time save there.
And he gets away.
He gets away from the first one. Let's see if he gets lucky on the second one as well. Definitely pushing his luck here, but he gets away with it, definitely saving a little bit of time on those nightmares. Trying to do whatever it takes to push a little bit closer to double and maybe still take that lead. Getting some slight movement error there though. That could have potentially given him that extra encounter. Which definitely goes to show how important that movement is.
And Dubldrop is picking up a couple spells at this point. There are 3 spells we use in this game. For the White Mage, we learn Hilara, simply for healing both outside of battle from this point on, and most importantly for the final boss battle, well, she will be healing every turn. The Black Mage is going to first learn Teleport, which we just picked up. It's a little different than the Exit spell that you can learn in this game and other Final Fantasy games, also called Warp in some of the games. That instead of just taking you outside to the world map, it takes you to the previous floor you were on in a dungeon, or to the world map if you're on the first floor. So that'll be useful later on in the Sunken Shrine, but for the most part we'll be using it in all their other areas just to get the world map. We also learned Haste, which works very differently than in other Final Fantasy games. This game does not use the active time battle system. Every character gets one turn per round. But what Haste does, whenever our characters attack, you'll notice when they do a physical attack, it might say 2 hits, 5 hits, 6 hits above their head. That's the number of hits they get, which is multiplied by the damage their weapon does. What Haste does in this game is it doubles the number of hits. So while it increased your speed, effectively what it's doing is it is doubling your physical attack power. And we'll be using that on 2 different boss fights later in this run.
Yeah, so you may notice on Dubldrop's end that he's walking on a lot of lava tiles. Now, that is not a coincidence. Dubldrop is actually purposely trying to take as many lava tiles as possible and trying to avoid the regular tiles where he can. The reason for that simply being that when you walk on lava tiles, you cannot actually get into an encounter. So the more you walk on lava tiles, the fewer encounters you'll get, and generally the faster the dungeon will go. In that regard, Mount Gulg, easy as the dungeon generally is, it actually has some of the most tight movement. As a result of that, you want to take that or as many lava tiles as you can. Looks like Dubldrop got particularly unlucky during this Mount Gulg with his encounter luck. I think he got like 4 to 5 encounters, which is a lot for this point in the run. He gets some Ogre Mages. Now, the Ogre Mages on that floor can sometimes be a little tricky and not let you run, but he got away from it, and he's about to head into the Merilith fight. So after now an hour into the game, they're finally going to get, or Dubldrop is now finally going to get the second crystal, the Crystal of Fire.
And he does get the unfortunate fire cast, but he should still be able to take Merilith out. Unfortunately, it does take 2 cycles, and actually ends up having a closer fight than you would expect. That is why a lot of runners choose to heal before that battle, simply because that Fyra, most of us at some point have ignored our hit points and gotten killed at that point in the run.
Yeah, this is also where, it's going to be nice to have that extra health on the white mage, but it definitely makes that a very rough fight if you get that move off. It's very rare to see that fight. Incredibly rare to see Merilith actually capable of killing off 3 of his party members, very nearly costing him right there. But he gets away with it. His white mage is pulling through, so even though the fight because of it was a little bit slower, he manages to pull through and gets the win. And that does mean that Dubldrop is now pretty much an entire dungeon ahead of Boxmeister. So as Dubldrop leaves, Boxmeister enters. So let's see if Boxmeister is going to have a bit of a better Mount Gold than Double is. In the meantime, Double is going to get a few items out of the way, after which he's going for the next crystal, which is going to be the Crystal of Water.
So there's a little kind of 2-stage quest we have to do before we can get into this dungeon. The first part is we need to go visit this desert caravan to buy a fairy and a bottle. While we're here, we're also going to pick up some Giant's tonics, which hopefully we won't need to use, but what they do is they increase character's hit point pool by 200 points, which we may and likely will need for the final battle for our ninja and or our black wizard. Then we're going to visit the Tav Gaia, where we're going to release the fairy and go get the Oxy Ale, which will allow us to breathe underwater and enter the next dungeon, the Sunken Shrine, where we will be fighting the Fiend of Water, Kraken. Box had a pretty clean path down to Merilith, pretty good Mount Golg, so probably saved a little time there.
Yeah, Boxmeister definitely saving a little bit of time in Mount Golg. Looks like there's about a 2.5 to 3 minute difference between the 2 runners at this point. Definitely looks like a strong lead for Boxmeister. Doesn't mean it's all over yet, because there is still a lot that can happen during these last few dungeons, but it definitely looks like Dubldrop has the lead for the time being.
So Dubldrop is going to Onrak, where he's going to be going, taking a little barrel submarine down to visit the Sunken Shrine. The Sunken Shrine itself is not hugely dangerous. There is one random encounter, the Water Naga, that can cast some full party spells, but generally not that dangerous. But there are a lot of potential unrunnable encounters. So he'll be looking out for that. It's also an interesting dungeon, and there are, midway through the dungeon, it splits into 2 directions, one going up, one going down. The very top floor of the dungeon is an item called the Rosetta Stone, which will be needed used to learn a language to get an item to get into the next dungeon. But at the bottom of the dungeon is the Fiend of Water. So we're actually going to be going off one direction and using that teleport spell to come back midway through the dungeon to go the other direction. And Double showing a little bit of knowledge of the game right there. He ran into the Water Naga Water Elemental battle. It's the only battle with a Water Elemental in the shrine that you are able to run from. But now he's dealing with the Sahagan Prince, Sahagan Chief battle, which does is an unrunnable encounter, and we need to use either the white mage or the black mage from here on out for most of our judgment staff uses, because we're going to start running into situations where the knight and the ninja just don't have the magic power to one-shot some of the enemies with a spell. The ghost here also is an unrunnable encounter, but there's only 2 of them, so we're just going to go ahead and use physical attacks. And here, it's kind of a draw once you get 4 enemies, whether or not to use the Judgment Staff or to do a physical attack. In this case, he already had physical attacks queued, so he went ahead and used physical attacks instead of doing the extra menuing time to get to the Judgment Staff. Now he's on the floor with the Rosetta Stone. This floor has no encounters.
Yeah, so the Rosetta Stone is one of those items that they tend to look at very much in terms of how good a run is. In general, if you get the Rosetta Stone at about the 1 hour mark, you're generally on a decent sub 130 pace. Considering Double got it at about a 106, it means he's definitely not on a very good pace. It's like a 135-ish pace that he's on currently. And that's considering a pretty decent end game still. So definitely shows that he's having a very rough run despite really solid execution from his end.
So he used teleport twice there and is now on his way back to the lower section of the Sunken Shrine to find Kraken. We will be doing one more equipment glitch menu here. It's actually going to be one of the more complicated menus of the game because we're going to be glitching more than one kind of item in the menu.
Yeah, not to mention, on top of that, it also involves one of the most glitching of any menu in the game. They need to equip a total of 12 items, or 11, depending on what route they decided to use. So it definitely involves a lot of glitching. It involves pretty complicated glitching because of the multiple items. So this is definitely another one of those menus where if Double can keep his own, it can save him a little bit more time on Boxmeister.
Double's been getting a lot of unrunnable encounters in this shrine, so it is potentially an area where Boxmeister could catch up some. Unfortunately, he did try to run from an unrunnable encounter. Just got kind of on autopilot holding the L and R buttons. It's something that all of us still do occasionally.
Yeah, the more experienced the runners are, generally the fewer you see that mistake, but even on very experienced runners, on occasion it can still happen. It's definitely one of those parts, though, where the inexperience from Box shows a little bit, at least. In that he doesn't get the... or he decides to go for an autopilot in probably one of the most dangerous dungeons to do just that.
And Double dealing with another ghost encounter. He's just really having a lot of bad encounters in this dungeon and in general. It's just the run that just keeps giving.
Yeah, this run, for both of these runners for that matter, has just been atrocious in terms of encounters. I mean, it's a good thing that both of the runners are getting it so that we can definitely see where the execution differences come in, but it definitely goes to show that both of these guys having a really tough time with the encounters.
Boxmeister is doing his teleports now, working his way to the second half of the Sunken Shrine. Meanwhile, Dubldrop is on the final floor of the Sunken Shrine as the longest floor. Fortunately, I don't know if it's just me, I've always felt like it had a little lower encounter rate than some of the other floors in the dungeon does. It might just be my imagination, though.
So Double opting to take that heal after his experience with Merilith just now. Neat little side bit there. Generally, the Kraken is a very, very easy fight, very straightforward. Nothing that can really happen. But Double has already seen some really, really weird RNG this run, so I'm guessing he's just going to opt to take it as safe as he can. I'm going to take that heal regardless.
And at this point, looking at the Black Mage health on Double side, 141, that's a little lower than we want to see at this point in the run. Compare that to Boxmeister is already at the 229 for his Black Mage. So
yeah, Boxmeister definitely having the health that he pretty much would like to have. Ideally, you'd have a little bit more still, but like it's a good starting health. Dubldrop actually being on a health where if he doesn't get that additional health, that can actually cause him a lot of trouble during the final boss fight.
At the same time, Box is Ninja has fairly low health at 206. The Ninja does require a little more health than the Black Mage does, simply because the Black Mage has a little higher inherent magical defense. So for a race, I like to have over 250 for my Black Mage and around 300 for my Ninja when we get to the final boss.
Yeah, now the thing is, it's not as big a deal if the Ninja is still kind of low-ish at this point, because the Ninja is a lot more likely to level from all of the additional unrunnable fights. Just over the fact that, you know, the Ninja didn't get any levels during that grinding section where the Black Mage did. So it's not generally as big a deal. It's a lot easier to manage with low health from the Ninja, although it can still be kind of annoying. Boxmeister making a bit of a weird movement mistake there, and Eddie steps in front of the Light Axe chest, which actually triggers an additional encounter for him. He probably intended to go one tile further, but started to press up just too early, because of which he got into that encounter.
And Boxmeister once again having a little trouble with the menus, but he's getting a little smoother at them as the run goes.
Yeah, he's definitely, it's definitely looking like he's decided to take it a little bit slower than he had before, to just not keep making the same mistakes that he was earlier. Earlier, you may have noticed that he was canceling out even when he did get it. It looked like he was taking it a lot slower this time to just make sure that he wouldn't do that, and in turn, actually ended up saving what for him probably would have saved him some time.
And that's just something that it takes a little discipline to learn, that sometimes slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Looks like Double actually took a wrong turn.
Wrong turn, yeah.
That is interesting for a runner of Double's caliber to see a mistake there. That is not something that you see a lot when it comes to a runner like Dubldrop. On his skill level, you'll probably not see him take wrong turns somewhere. And the fact that he made that kind of mistake just definitely shows that today is not a good day for him. Yeah, probably just getting down because of that additional amount of encounters and how bad his encounters have been so far.
I would also point out he's also one of the most active people in the chat right now, so his attention is a little split, I believe. So here Dubldrop is doing the ribbon menu. This one's a little different than all the other menus we do in the game. We actually pick up the item we want, not the one we need to glitch. So what we have to do is we actually have to take the ribbon that we want and turn it into a Gigantaxe, so that we can then use the Gigantaxe to duplicate our ribbons. So it's kind of, we start with one extra step at the beginning of that item glitch menu. And Boxmeister clears Kraken, while Dubldrop is on his way now out of the waterfall cavern. He's working his way to go visit Melmond a third and final time to use that Rosetta Stone to learn the language Lufenian.
Yeah, so this is actually a very common mistake. Like, almost every runner has made it at least once, to have forgotten to go to Melbourne to talk to the professor and learn Lofenian. If that happens and you happen to just go full muscle memory and go towards the chime, you can suddenly just lose minutes at a time.
In fact, I want to say, was it the old tutorial? I believe they actually forgot to do it on one of the old tutorials for the game. It was a stream tutorial where they forgot to run and get that, so it was like a little learning lesson within the tutorial you were watching.
The current tutorial that Chrono Kirby and I made, Chrono Kirby actually forgot to pick up the rat's tail in the Citadel. So it definitely goes to show how something like that just can happen. Not to mention, during the very first Final Fantasy Relay, and I know this comes up every single time again, but Chrono Kirby at the time actually making the very mistake of forgetting to learn Lothlorien. I think that actually ended up losing him the race as well, so definitely goes to show how rough something like that can be.
Yeah. The items that are most commonly forgotten would be we forget to pick up the rat's tail. Any of the chest items, we'll occasionally forget the crown, the rat's tail. We'll fight the spike tile and just forget to pick up the item. Then we've all forgotten this one, and I've forgotten to go to the waterfall cavern before. I thought I was making great time until I got most of the way to Tiamat and realized I couldn't go any further.
Yeah, and then the Levy Stone is a very common one to mistake as well. I've seen a lot of times, especially in bingos and the like, where usually you pick it up after the grind, but because you don't grind, you forget to pick it up. Something along those lines. Very common mistake as well. So definitely, like, this run tends to have a lot of those issues where if you forget one little thing, it can just lose you a lot of time. Even though they're all pretty simple to remember, over the course of many runs, you tend to see a lot of those little mistakes.
And especially as you're learning this route, you'll make a lot of those silly little mistakes, and they're rites of passage. It doesn't mean that you're bad at the game, you're not going to be good at the game. It's just a rite of passage is to forget to heal there, forget to grab an item there. It happens. The most difficult thing to learn about this game, there are three things I think are difficult. One is just learning not to make those silly mistakes. Two is memorizing which battles you can't run from. That's actually a very difficult thing to learn for a lot of people early on. And then just optimizing movement on the world map, which actually is still a big problem for me in the airship.
It looks like Boxmeister just finished up his ribbon menu. It looked like a very smooth menu from Boxmeister. So now he's also going to learn Lothlorien and walk over to Lothlorien to get the chime. Dubldrop steadily increasing his lead from the looks of it. Definitely looks like, unless something weird happens to Double, it's pretty much his game at this point.
Mm-hmm. The Double's on the second floor of the Mirage Tower. This has one of the higher encounter rates in the game. But there are only 2 unrunnable encounters on the random battles, and they're both very rare. One would be a single vampire, because that's flagged as a mini-boss from earlier in the game. Also a single blue dragon, because that's actually flagged as a mini-boss later in this dungeon. You'll notice that we're not worried about these cockatrices any longer, because that ribbon we picked up earlier gives us status immunity, and more importantly, it gives us magical elemental defense, which is actually the main reason we get it.
Yeah, so the ribbon gives a 50% defense against every elemental magic, as well as giving you immunity to every single status effect that is in some way related to an element. Meaning that basically every single one, with the exception of the Mind Flyers, those are the only ones, because it's neutral elemental, that can actually still hurt.
So you saw a Dubldrop warp. That's what we need the warp cube for, was a sip on that tile. And now he's in the air fortress. Also has a very high encounter rate, but only one unrunnable encounter in the Evil Eye. The air elementals, in fact, are the only elementals that you can run from.
Yeah, Dubldrop is about to come up on the 5th floor of the Flying Fortress, and every single time we have to mention this. I think we've only seen it once over the course of the tournament, but on the 5th floor there is a 1 in 64 encounter, the War Mech, which has which grants the most experience and money of any character or of any enemy in the game. It's incredibly hype if we get to see one, and if we do, chat, this is one for you. If we do, I would like you all to spam the War Mech. However, it is a very rare encounter. On average, you'll see one every about 32 runs, considering about an average of 2 encounters on that floor, and it being a 1 in 64. So it's a very, very rare encounter. However, if we do see it, be sure to get hyped.
And if we do see it, generally we will fight it simply for the experience boost we would get from it. Especially looking at our hit point pool. Now, it doesn't mean just because we're fighting the Fiend now, does not mean Dubldrop will not see the War Mech. There is a chance of running into him on the way out of the dungeon.
Yeah, I will say though, Dubldrop getting to the Tiamat without any encounters on that floor definitely gets a good final floor there. I'm gonna get to the last crystal right now, once he's killed Tiamat. Tiamat himself being a pretty straightforward fight, as long as you're fully healed, is really nothing at all to worry about. Gets his Black Mage really low on the health there.
His Black Mage started at full health there. That's just how low his Black Mage health is right now.
Yeah, it definitely goes to show that the health on the Black Mage for Dubldrop is incredibly low right now. It's one of the lowest I've ever seen. And it is going to be something that could potentially cause him a lot of trouble near the final fight.
Now, Double had a fairly good Tiamat split going there, so Boxmeister has kind of a tall order to follow that up here.
So it looks like Dubldrop did not get the War Mech encounter, but we may still have a chance because Boxmeister isn't that far away from it either. See if Box might be getting a little bit more lucky or unlucky, no matter or whatever perspective you're looking at it here. See if he might be able to get the War Mech. So Dubldrop getting into a bit of a cutscene there. Now this is a cutscene you'll only see in the PSP version because it actually unlocks the Labyrinth of Time. It's the 5th and last of the bonus dungeons in this game, which you can only get in this version of the game specifically. We're just going to ignore that though. He's going to run up to the orb that we saw right at the start of the game. This is where we fought Garland about 3 minutes into the run. Now with the 4 Crystals of Light, he's going to open up a portal, and that's going to allow him to travel 2,000 years into the past to fight Garland one more time. Now, the Chaos Shrine is another one of those dungeons that can still make a huge difference here. Chaos Shrine it has a lot of different unrunnables. Dubldrop actually trying to run from one of those unrunnables here. Definitely a bit of an odd mistake from Double there. But Chaos Shrine also just has a lot of really annoying and really painful encounters. Pretty much since the Cavern of Ice, it's been pretty smooth sailing from there, but the Chaos Shrine can still make a huge difference in a run like this. So Boxmeister entering B5 as well, gonna heal up his characters and gonna move. Let's see if he can get a War Mech today. He gets into an encounter. It's not a War Mech, unfortunately, so unfortunately we're gonna have to wait this one out just a little bit longer. So Dubldrop getting into some fight with Green Dragons. Now, the Green Dragons here, as bad as they are, it might not actually be that bad for Dubldrop to get these. He's going to need some experience on the Black Mage with the hopes that that is going to push him over that 145 onto the higher amounts of health. That probably didn't do enough, but it may have just done a little bit on the Black Mage there. Unfortunately, he gets a 2-roll on the HP again, keeping his Black Mage incredibly low here.
So the reason we're so worried about this Black Mage is we do have the Giant's Tonics, which will allow us to increase our hit point pool by 200, but we need the Black Mage to have enough hit points that if Chaos chooses to cast Blaze on the first turn, he needs to be able to tank that spell, which could potentially do upwards of 150 damage.
Yeah, and Blaze is it's a very common move for Chaos to do on the first turn. So it's definitely not unlikely that he will get that off. And with this kind of health, the Black Mage is pretty much guaranteed to not be able to tank that. So pretty bad for Double if he doesn't get that extra bit of health very, very soon. He also gets very unlucky on the amount of Green Dragons he's getting. He actually mentioned that in chat as well, but he just loses minutes here just on the Green Dragons. If this Chaos Shrine continues like this for Dubldrop, it could actually potentially become a lot of trouble for him, and Boxmeister might just be able to catch up if he gets a really good end game.
Especially given the Black Mage situation with the very real possibility at this point. It's getting better. 151 is looking better, but he's still have a possible situation where Chaos could be killing the Black Mage on the first turn, which might require a reset.
Not to mention that because his extra rolls here are still very low, it's going to get harder and harder for Dubldrop to actually get his Black Mage leveled up to begin with, which doesn't make this situation any better either. Like, he's only getting rolls of 2 HP at a time, and though that seems like, okay, it's going to be a little bit, the higher level he gets, the lower the chance that he'll get another level up, meaning it's just going to get harder and harder as time goes on.
And counterintuitively, the further we go through the dungeon, the less experience we get from the enemies. Because after this floor we're on right now, we will face exclusively enemies from earlier dungeons in the game.
And now I will note that despite the really bad health on Dubldrop's Black Mage, his Thief is well over 300 at this point, which is actually a really solid amount for the Thief.
Yeah, his ninja should be fine.
So Boxmeister now also entering the last dungeon of the game. Let's see if Box is going to be able to catch up a little bit here. It's pretty much still going to look like Double is going to need to get either really, really unlucky or going to need a death on Chaos if this is going to turn around at any point. But
on Boxmeister's side, looks like he is at a point where he probably will need to use Giant's Tonic on both of his Ninja and his Black Mage, but both have enough hit points that he should be able to do that safely.
The Boxmeister also getting some Green Dragons, but so far looking like a lot smoother a Death Eye split. Still definitely not done, and Dubldrop definitely has a very, very big lead here on Boxmeister. But it might not be entirely impossible for Box to catch up here.
See if Lich casts Flare. Lich is the most dangerous of the refights.
It looks like Dubldrop got away with the refight quite well, did not get flared by Lich. Boxmeister now using the loot, meaning that these runners are like minutes, at like a minute or two apart at most at this point. If Box manages to get a good Lich here.
Yeah, Box has gained a lot of time on that Death Eye split.
Yeah, and I do want to mention, like, the floor after this, the floor where Double is on, the Kraken floor, it actually has a lot of unrunnables as well. There's basically 2 sets of encounters that you can get there. It's either going to be like a big pack of water elementals, or it's going to be a big pack of just scorpions and trolls and sahagins and whatnot. Looks like Boxmeister, I don't know if he's noticed it, but Boxmeister got a Mega Elixir drop just now. That could actually get him a lot of additional safety on the final fight if he manages to play his cards well here. I don't know if he knows how to do that, because it's a very rare drop in an any percent run. But if he noticed, and if he is able to use that Mega Elixir appropriately, it can actually save him a lot of time and a lot of trouble on the final boss. So this is the floor where it's basically going to have to happen for Dubldrop. It looks like Dubldrop got a very good roll on the level up for his Black Mage, managing to get to 176. Don't think that's going to be enough, but it may just be enough to help him pull through a little bit.
Yeah. There's enough that he probably will be able to get through the first round, unless he gets a bad roll on a Blaze spell.
So Dubldrop getting a pretty smooth, well, not smooth, but a pretty decent Kraken 2 floor. Didn't get any unrunnables that I saw, and, you know, even though he got quite a few encounters, none of them were bad in any way. So it definitely looks like he's able to get through this at least. So that's Kraken 2 down for Dubldrop. Boxmeister about to start his Lich 2 fight. Looks like he didn't heal up. He is going full YOLO on this one. A flare could probably kill him off completely. I think the reason he did that, that is
oh no
for Boxmeister. Yeah, that will do it. I'm suspecting that he didn't go for a heal there because he knew that he was too far behind to be able to afford that extra. He needed that few seconds. But that is basically GG at this point. Boxmeister taking a death on Lich 2, and that is pretty much the end of it. Boxmeister not healing on Lich 2, very, very dangerous, especially with the health that he had. He took a huge risk there, and he did not get away with it. So that is going to lose Boxmeister the run, and that is pretty much GG for Dubldrop at this point.
And Boxmeister managed to die to both forms of Lich today.
Interestingly enough, he did. He died to both the first fight of Lich, where he got a Blazara, and now again with the Flare on Lich 2.
Now, the Blazara is completely unavoidable. If you heal up, you should be able to tank the Flare with at least some of your characters. So
yeah, I will say that Boxmeister's health is looking very close even then. Considering that health, I probably would have opted for a safety save, but it is definitely a risk that he took in not healing at all and just going all in. He YOLO'd and he didn't get away with it. It's basically that simple, which is very unfortunate for Box, but not much you can do about that one. Dubldrop entering the final boss fight now, and that means let's see what's gonna happen to his Black Mage, but I think it's pretty much over for Double.
And right before this fight, we did one final equipment glitch. We gave the White Mage the golden staff from the gauntlets using the Thief, and we also removed her survival vest from her armor slot because we need her to go last.
Double not healing before the fight with Chaos. This is pretty big choke from Double's side right there. That is definitely a big mistake. It depends on what Chaos is going to do, whether he can get away with that or not. Looks like Double is This isn't even a YOLO anymore.
Oh,
This is
no.
just flat out a mistake, and that is going to be a reset for Dubldrop. I don't know if he saved before the fight. I did not pay attention to it, but looks like he is gonna try to pull back from that. I think he may not have saved either.
So this could potentially be very, very bad for Double.
If Double is not able to pull back from this, that could be the end of it. I like I said, I don't know if he saved. Okay, it looks like Eineb is confirming that he did save.
So he might just be taking the opportunity since he has a good lead just to try to pull it off for entertainment's sake.
Still looking like it's going to be a very clutch fight for Dubldrop. I don't know if this is the right call to make for him here. Honestly, if Boxmeister hadn't gone for the YOLO on Lich 2, then Double may have had a chance, or he may have had a chance to pull through here. He's again not going to take a safety save or anything. He did heal to full this time. Hopefully that'll be enough. It's still very close on the amount of health that he has, so hopefully he can pull through this Lich fight. Gets a physical attack, so he is fine, and he's going to move on here.
It looks like the Slowra was cast on the Knight on Dubldrop's side, so the Knight is doing half damage right now. Alright, I think he might be able to pull this off now. He got lucky with a physical attack on the Warrior. We have to watch out for the Kuraja and keep an eye on the White Mage's magic pool, but as long as the White Mage does not run out of magic, I think we can save this now.
Yeah, but Black Mage might still die to the Cyclone.
Oh, to this, sure enough.
The Cyclone can do a lot of damage, and I don't know if 217 is going to be enough. It's not enough. 5 damage more than the health that the Black Mage had. So, gonna make this a very slow fight for Dubldrop right here.
You know, Boxmeister finishes off Merilith, catching up slowly but surely.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting fight for Dubldrop. I don't know what made him decide to not take the reset. It looks like he's gonna try to pull it off. It looks like he's getting there, but he's getting pretty close to a potential Kuraja here, which could slow down the fight a lot more again.
With the amount of health that, with the amount of damage he's done to the Chaos, it would basically heal him back up to full. It would basically start the fight over. The biggest concern at this point is going to be magic for the White Wizard. The Ethers will only heal up 50 magic points at a time, so basically we'd have to give up the Black Mage's turn every turn to give Ethers to the White Mage to continue the healing.
Yeah, it looks like Double picked up on the fact that he was getting low on MP, so he is able to play around with that. Definitely going to make this a lot closer a race still, but I don't think Box has enough to be able to pull back because of that death on the Lich. Honestly, though, I think if Box had not died on Lich 2, then it probably would have been, or he probably would have been able to pull through here.
Yes. But he's got 15 Ethers left, or he had 15 when he started, so he has 13 now. So I think Double has this now. It's going to be slow, and I haven't seen, has there been a Kuraja yet? There almost certainly will be at this point.
Yeah, he may have not. I've seen quite a few physical hits on that end as well, so he may be able to pull this through. Not 100% sure what we'll see here. Double now full on going into the damage. Don't think that's going to be enough yet, but going to make this pretty close, especially considering that every time he does the physical hit, he's not getting closer to the Kuraja yet, so if he gets a few more physical hits, this might still do. And there is Double with the finish, not getting the Kuraja, 139.11. Very, very rough run from Dubldrop, but it looks like he pulls in the win. Boxmeister about to start his Chaos's fight as well, so let's see if Boxmeister can get this. But like I said, I honestly think if it wasn't for that death on Lich, then Box may have had a very strong chance of taking this race with a strat that Double pulled. Although I'm not completely sure if he hadn't died, that Double would have actually tried to salvage that fight like he did.
Yeah, because I think unless things go wrong for Boxmeister on Chaos, I think that would have been enough for Boxmeister to win, if not for that Lich death. But as you said,
healing was not intentional, by the way. That was an accident.
We figured that much. Had you saved?
I did save.
Okay, so you just decided to go for it?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know how far he was behind me. I had no idea that he died to Lich. So I was like, well, I better go for it. Like, I don't know how much time I have to reset.
So it definitely goes to show that if Boxmeister hadn't had that death there, then it may have been a very different result today. But looks like Double taking the win. Congratulations, Double.
Thanks. It was not deserved, that's for sure.
I'm gonna ask regardless. I mean, you've had probably one of the most painful races that I've seen you have in a very long time. What went through you throughout this run? Because this must have been something else right there.
Probably at about Astos, I gave up on the run, and I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna have fun with it, and whatever. I had no idea where Box was in comparison to me, except when I asked in chat, because I don't have the race comparison on Live Split, so I just decided to have fun with it.
So I'm gonna quickly answer a question from chat here. Even though Boxmeister doesn't have the Mega Elixir anymore, the Mega Elixir is an item that can instantly heal your entire HP and MP to full in one go. So if he had that during the fight in a position like this, he could use both the a Phoenix Down and a Mega Elixir in the same turn with an attempt of immediately reviving everyone to full at once. Basically what the Mega Elixir would have been for.
So that also would have had the secondary effect of healing my White Mage's MP, which would have prevented me from having to ether every turn.
Yeah, so that near the end there, I mean, you had quite a few things happen over the course of the run. First of all, that early game, I want to point that out right off the bat.
That was atrocious.
You had a really bad encounter right there. I think I saw like a 17-minute Jolt tonic. You mentioned in chat already not even sub 10 entry of Marsh or something along the lines?
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't even in Marsh Cave at 10 minutes, and like a good crown split is like 9:15, and I wasn't even in the cave yet at 10 minutes.
Yeah, so at that point in the run, you didn't know it, but you were actually pretty much neck on neck with Boxmeister.
I thought I was like 4 minutes behind. I'm not even lying.
Yeah, you both had very, very rough game in general, especially the early game. And then Boxmeister actually, unfortunately, took a death to both forms of Lich. And this Lich 2, he had not saved since the beginning of the Chaos Shrine, so we had to restart the Chaos Shrine. Whereas Lich 1, he had saved right before the battle.
That's such an odd death, too, because the odds of Lich 2 flare happening is really low, and then on top of that, the odds of it rolling high and killing your entire party are even lower.
He had healed.
Oh, okay, well, that's a different story.
Also, I will say, I think a flare may have killed him regardless, because of both of the White Mage and the Warrior having under a 350 health at the time. So both of them being pretty low on their respective HP pools.
It'd be close. He would have to roll high with flare, though.
He would. He definitely would. But the not having healed there may have cost him the race here.
Oh, it definitely did.
That being said, this is actually a pretty rough chaos fight he's having right here.
Yeah, with the death on the ninja here, and he's trying to pull through, but he is gonna. I don't know if he kept an eye on his MP pool here. If he didn't, he may also very well be in trouble in a little bit, because he is about to run out.
He did ether the white mage earlier.
Okay, there is Boxmeister with the
Okay.
144.26. Both of them having a very, very rough run right here. But definitely an interesting race to watch. This has been, RNG-wise, probably one of the worst runs we've seen for both of these runners.
Yeah, this has been, as far as a race as a total, I've never seen a race where both sides had it this rough. And just goes to show this game, I mean, Double, until yesterday, world record holder, had a 139. So you can lose 10, 12 minutes of this game on a bad RNG run. Absolutely.
I was gonna finish about 10 minutes above PB until I forgot to heal on Chaos.
So we're joined here by Boxmeister. From the sound of it, pretty beat up after that run.
Yeah, I made some mistakes, but I also got terrible RNG.
You and me both. You and me both.
Yeah, that is the story of this race.
Yeah, well, the fact is, I every now and then I checked the Speed Gaming Twitch, and I was like, wait a second, this is still on Chaos. I was like, what was happening? And there wasn't any message appearing in the race IRC, so I was like, okay, apparently had a rough Chaos.
I forgot to heal going into Chaos, so I had to salvage it.
I forgot to heal before Lich too, so he killed me, and I had to get to and I went back all the way to the beginning of the Chaos Shrine. So yeah.
I didn't know that you died, so I thought you were right on my heels going into Chaos because my Death Eye was atrocious, and so I lost 2 minutes to my own PB. I figured you caught up a bit, and then forgetting to heal, I was like, okay, I have two choices. I can reset and load my save and waste 30 seconds, or I can try and salvage it and pray that I pull it off. Wow. And I had no idea where you were, so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll try and salvage it.
I would have lost it on the Chaos fight anyway. My Chaos fight was terrible as well.
Yeah, you had that really early death with the ninja there. That definitely lost you a lot of time on the Chaos fight too.
Yeah, I made the right decision one turn too late. I should have giant tonicked the ninja from the start. I saw it too late.
Yeah, that's a decision that you have to make right off the bat. You look at your HP before the Chaos fight and say, okay, I'm gonna either tonic one or two or both of them, and you do it all in turn one.
Yeah, I knew I had to tonic my black mage. He was 239 HP, but 269 HP on my ninja was on the edge. I mean,
my black mage had 140 HP going into Chaos Shrine.
Oh wow. Yeah, my HP values were sort of they were going great up until Chaos Shrine, basically. That's where they stagnated, so that's why I had to do difficult tonic strats. And I facepalmed when I died against Lich too, because I forgot that I took a few hits.
Well, from what I was told, it's possible that Flare could have killed you even if you're at full health if he rolled high.
Yeah, but it was a definite kill because I was somewhere in the hundreds of HP, and at full health, at least my warrior would be at 300 something. So I might have pulled through if I would have healed. But it's close. It would have been close at the very least. But yeah, terrible RNG. Mistakes on my end. I mean, that's about all I can say about my race.
I had the dream 3-hit Lich 2.
Oh wow.
It was the warrior, ninja, and black mage all crit. I killed them in 3 hits.
So considering we're getting at the end of this, because I think this was the last race for tonight. Fiesel, correct me if I'm wrong. This might be a good idea to go over to somebody else, give somebody that host.
Want to raid the Paladin tournament?
Yeah, I say the Paladin tournament is streaming right now over on RPG Limit Break.
We've got two good options then, I feel like. We've got the Paladin tournament, and we've got one of the remaining runners who's actually doing not Final Fantasy 1, but the City of Final Fantasy speedruns at the moment.
Mhm.
So I'll leave it up to you and Box, I suppose, Double, because you two were the runners tonight.
Absolutely.
I'm down
Paladin.
for going with the Paladin, yeah.
Then let's head over to the RPG Limit Break channel for
You got a
the
raid message?
or Paladin tournament. And for the race message, I would just suggest, I mean, considering we're rating our fellow Final Fantasy fellow Final Fantasy tournament, to just have FF1 say hi.
I think that's a good one. I agree with that.
FF1 in chaos. Where are you when chaos strikes?
And before we head on over there, I want to just thank everybody. I want to thank Feasel and the Speed Gaming channel for hosting us. I want to thank both our runners. You should follow Dubldrop and Boxmeister for running. Cool for hosting here with me, doing the commentary, and just everyone watching the stream for watching.
Yeah, and from my end, I want to thank Shinbreaker, of course, as well for both of his run earlier, as well as helping me on the commentary today. So let's give it up for the Final Fantasy IV tournament, and let's have FF1 say hi over there.